A massive Monday for LSU football caps off a interesting last 48 hours for LSU athletics. We're talking about that and so much more today on the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. And welcome everyone to the latest edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast. Appreciate you listening in as always. And brother, we got a lot to get to on this Let Me Talk to You Tuesday. We got to start off. I'll gladly do a little mea culpa because I talked about it last Tuesday, how it felt like to a certain extent LSU and Lane Kiffin were failing the first test of this new era when it comes to the transfer portal. The portal king didn't feel like he was getting his guy in place over at LSU in the quarterback position, because that was the biggest position of need after this past season with Garrett Nussmeier. He's done. The injury affected him in a lot of ways that maybe we didn't necessarily think about heading into the season. You lost Jawan Johnson. All your quarterbacks decided to exit stage left for different reasons. That said, we are now looking at LSU in a lot different of a light because Lane Kiffin, by hook or by crook, was able to get his man Sam Leavitt out of Arizona State. And you think about everything that they've had to deal with over the last week. We talked about it a lot with Damon Williams over at Washington, whether or not he was going to stick around with the program, all the hoopla surrounding that. And once that dust settled, I think Lane Kiffin went and made that final pitch. And credit to him. Now, I think this is going to go down a lot like I think Sean Payton's legacy with the New Orleans Saints. When he kicked that onside kick to start the second half in the Super Bowl, he looked like the smartest man in the room because of the fact that he was successful. And in turn, that wound up leading to the Saints winning their one and only Super Bowl. Lane Kiffin doing what he did this past weekend with Sam Leavitt, making that final push, going over to Tennessee, where Leavitt was being courted and saying, hey, I want you to get on this team now. And lo and behold, Monday morning around 10 o'clock, I'm sitting in my office Monday morning. I'm like, okay, when are things going to pop off? I get the notification. I'm like, all right, let's go. Today's show is going to be easy to map out. I think this is going to be a massive W. They backed up the Brinks truck for this man. And again, you think about the situation. He went over to Tennessee to basically snipe the Volunteers from getting their quarterback for 2026. It was a ballsy move by every metric, and probably should have been something I think many coaches would have chosen. You know, we'll step back and we'll let our pitch stand the test of time. But again, Lane Kiffin is going to go down as an absolute beast for landing this recruit in the boat the way that he did. If it didn't work out and he went to Tennessee or went to any other programs, it would have looked like a massive failure and he would have had egg on his face. Again, we're going to be talking about the actual reality, not the alternate realities and the what ifs. It's just something to think about. But at the end of the day, the highest bidder finally blinked. And according to reports, $6 million is how much Sam Leavitt is worth, according to Tennessee. So the money is absolutely insane. Again, it was a massive win on a lot of different fronts, namely getting your quarterback for 2026 in place and also blocking an SEC rival from solving their own problem at QB. And this is an absolute game changer. And that's not even like some of the things they managed to pull off over the last 24 hours. It has been an arc to see what LSU has been able to do in the transfer portal. Now they're ranked number 1 in the country with what they were able to do with the Sam Leavitt sweepstakes, and then also they have been racking up wide receivers over the last, let's say, 72 hours or so. You have Winston Watkins. You've got, they have a litany of wide receivers that have jumped over, and they're from all different walks of life. Eugene Wilson out of Florida. Roman Mothershed out of Troy. Trey Brown out of Old Dominion. You got a wide receiver, Jace Brown from Kansas State. Wide receiver Jackson Harris from Hawaii making the jump over to LSU. Josh Jackson from McNeese. He's jumping ship over to LSU. So you got a lot of different tastes and a lot of different players to choose from that have committed to the purple and gold for 2026. Whether or not these guys are 1 year or 2 year, it doesn't really matter. You are getting guys that are going to be highly touted heading into 2026. Now, I think you also need to start focusing on getting some big uglies on the offensive line, because that was one of the biggest things that hurt you, not just with the passing game, but I think it killed you in the long run, being able to produce a run game, but also keep your quarterback healthy. Garrett Nussmeier, again, that was what killed this team. When you think about it, is the offensive line play or lack thereof. He was under pressure in a lot of those games, and you're having to kind of replenish the toolbox because of the transfer portal and a lot of guys heading out that were actual producers this past season. Kern being one of them, and he was one that I felt like LSU should have put a little more effort into getting him to stick around, but lo and behold, that was not his MO. I'm not going to hate him for it, but I will say it is going to be interesting to see what happens with Sam Leavitt, mainly because of the Liz Frank injury and if that changes things for him. Again, he suffered that injury while at Arizona State, and he is over at LSU. He underwent Liz Frank surgery back in November. And that's about a 5 to 6 month window of recovery. Typical. So more likely than not, he's going to be out for spring practice. But by the time we get to SEC Media Days and fall training camp, he should be full bore, ready to rock and roll. Hopefully he is going to be good to go for this LSU program that needs to turn things around. That said, they wound up also getting a really interesting name in the transfer portal, somebody that you didn't necessarily know about heading into, I'd say, the last couple weeks, because you picked a guy out of Elon. Yes, Elon. That's a name you don't necessarily think about all that much unless you think about a certain billionaire owner of a social media platform that maybe has seen better days. We'll just leave that conversation, that sleeping dog lie on that. And that is Landon Clark. And the man has an absolute arm on him. 6 foot, 186 pounds. Definitely got to have to put some meat on them bones before he even sees the field. But as a sophomore, threw for 2,321 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions with Elon. And again, this is a quarterback room that's thinned out after the end of the season. Garrett Nussmeier, done. Finito. Colin Hurley, Jawan Johnson, they exited stage left and did not have a quarterback commit in the December signing period. Again, Landon Clark may be a plan B just in case things don't necessarily work and the recovery period takes a little bit longer. I think we're hoping that's not the case, but that's just how things may go. We're just going to keep an eye on that. Before too long, we'll probably know a lot more about what's going on with the LSU Tigers and the QB situation. Meanwhile, I want to flip it over to LSU women's basketball. Shout out to them on Sunday. They moved on up in the top 25 rankings, standing at 6th. And that's after 2 really good wins over the last week. One being a road win against Georgia, 80-59, bouncing back after an 0-2 start in SEC play. I talked about it on Friday's podcast. about how I wasn't necessarily as nervous about LSU women's basketball slow start in conference play like I am again about LSU men's basketball and their slow start in SEC play. It definitely is more justified, but getting a really good win, 70-65 over then ranked second in the country, Texas Longhorns. You got to take those wins anytime you can get them. 18-1, the Longhorns are now. They only have that one loss on their record, and it's at the hands of LSU, nothing short of spectacular. Michaela Williams showed up and showed out 20 points, and she had 7 total boards. Then you have Jada Richard and Flau J. Johnson both putting up double figures. Really nice performances all the way around for this team. So I'm intrigued to see how they look going forward, but seeing them go from 12th after a rough start in conference play and bouncing back with their first victory against an AP top 2 team since 2008. Think about that. Since 2008, the defense came up huge. 17 turnovers, a season high for the program, and holding Texas to a season low of 65. Nothing short of spectacular for the purple and gold on the women's basketball front. Again, Matt McMahon and the LSU men's program has not done all that well at all, but we'll leave that sleeping dog for a different day. We got to give the propers and always kind of go winners first with the podcast and talk about what's good right now, because we need a lot of good right now in this world. Again, 6th ranked LSU Tigers program. Kim Mulkey has turned this thing around, and I feel like we are seeing so much more to come for this program. I'm hoping things continue to proceed in the right direction. I think we're seeing a good start in conference play. After a rough one, they're bouncing back very, very nicely. It's just, hey, you got to keep it up. The season's not over yet. And I will kind of end the pod on this because I saw this and it sort of surprises me about the fact that Texas's head coach for women's basketball decided to complain a little bit after the game, saying why did the SEC was a little bit biased with the way they scheduled things. I don't think you can say that. Yes, I get it. You started off the season, your conference play matchups. You got South Carolina on Thursday. LSU, you played on Sunday. Cry me a river. Like, I'm sorry that you've got to play 2 teams back-to-back that are very, very good. At the same time, though, LSU, they had to go through a gauntlet to start off conference play. You don't hear Kim Mulkey and them complaining. Seriously. They want to play Vanderbilt on January 4th, and on the Thursday, January 1st, to start off 2026, you play Kentucky, and both those teams were ranked in the top 10. You don't hear Kim Mulkey complaining. Yes, you got to play 2 teams that are very much considered to be the creme de la creme of women's hoops. Valid. But at the same time, they're playing the same kind of schedule. They're playing you again in February. Then they've got Auburn. And then on Valentine's Day, smack dab in the middle of Mardi Gras season, they're hosting South Carolina. That could be a potentially 1 versus 2 matchup before too long. So cry me a river when it comes to, oh, they're scheduling too tough. No, that's BS. Like, no, you cannot be saying that if you want to be considered a contender. Texas, I don't think I've ever said this on the pod, but I'll say it one time only. Horns down with that kind of nonsense. Get that the heck out of here. Appreciate you listening in to today's edition of the Louisiana Lunch Hour podcast, and we'll make sure to keep listening to us and stay tuned. We talk about so much more about the state of Louisiana in the world of sports. So make sure you subscribe to us today. That way you don't miss a single episode. Talk to you tomorrow.